Daniel Foster stood on the balcony of his high-rise apartment, the city lights spreading out like a blanket of stars beneath him. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He was young, wealthy, and the owner of a successful tech company. But tonight, his thoughts were far from the numbers and deals that had made him a millionaire. Inside, Emily, his wife, was packing a small bag. She was 6 months pregnant, her face a mix of exhaustion and sadness. Their once loving marriage had become a series of long silences and short arguments. Daniel had been distant, always focused on his business, and Emily felt more alone than ever. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Emily asked softly, her voice trembling as she placed a tiny baby outfit into the bag. Daniel hesitated, unable to meet her eyes. "Emily, I don't know how to do this. I'm not ready to be a father. I can barely manage my own life right now." Emily's tears fell silently as she turned away, her hands clutching the fabric of the outfit. "You think walking away will make it easier for you? What about us, Daniel? What about your child?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his heart heavy with guilt. But he convinced himself this was the best choice. For everyone. He told himself Emily deserved someone better. Someone who could truly be there for her and the baby. "You'll be better off without me," he said, his voice hollow. "I'll make sure you're taken care of. Financially." Emily's shoulders sagged. "Money won't raise a child, Daniel. Love does." But Daniel was already walking toward the door, his suitcase in hand. He paused for a moment, looking back at the woman he had once promised to love forever. He saw the pain in her eyes, but he couldn't bring himself to stay. The weight of responsibility felt like a chain he wasn't ready to carry. "I'm sorry," he whispered before stepping out into the cold night air. As the door closed behind him, Emily sank to the floor, her hand resting protectively on her growing belly. She vowed to raise her child with all the love she had, even if it meant doing it alone. Daniel, meanwhile, climbed into the back of a waiting car, his face expressionless. As the city blurred past the windows, he felt a strange mix of relief and regret. He told himself he was chasing his dreams, but deep down, he knew he was running away. That night, 2 lives changed forever. Emily prepared to face an uncertain future, and Daniel tried to bury the guilt of leaving behind the family he would one day wish he had stayed for. Emily sat in the dimly lit kitchen of her small apartment, staring at the stack of bills on the table. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, broken only by the occasional rustle from the crib nearby. Her twins, Noah and Lily, slept peacefully, unaware of the storm their mother faced. Life as a single mother was not what Emily had imagined for herself. Each day was a test of strength, patience, and endurance. She worked long hours at the local diner, serving endless cups of coffee to customers who barely noticed her exhaustion. The tips she earned were stretched thin to cover rent, food, and the endless needs of 2 growing children. But Emily never complained. Every time she looked at Noah and Lily, her heart swelled with love. They were her world, her reason to keep going, even on the hardest days. She saw Daniel in them, the same sharp features and piercing blue eyes. It hurt to be reminded of him, but it also gave her strength. Her mornings began before sunrise. She'd prepare breakfast, pack lunches, and bundle the twins up for daycare before heading to work. By the time she returned home, she was often too tired to do anything but collapse into bed. Still, she made time for bedtime stories, cuddles, and whispered promises that tomorrow would be better. Despite the challenges, Emily found joy in the small moments. She laughed when Noah smeared peanut butter across his face, pretending to be a superhero. She felt pride when Lily took her first wobbly steps, clapping her tiny hands in delight. These moments reminded Emily that her sacrifices were worth it. But there were nights when the weight of it all felt too much to bear. On one such night, Emily sat by the window, gazing at the moon. Tears streamed down her face as she wondered if she was enough. She thought about Daniel and how different life could have been if he had stayed. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You're stronger than you think, Emily. Life isn't easy, but love makes it worth it. Emily wiped her tears and smiled faintly. Her children were her love, her light in the darkness. She resolved to give them a life filled with warmth and happiness, even if it meant carrying the burden alone. As the years passed, Noah and Lily grew into curious, spirited children. They asked questions about their father, questions Emily struggled to answer. "He loved you," she would say, her voice steady but her heart aching. But he had to leave. Emily didn't know how to explain Daniel's absence, but she promised herself that one day, when they were old enough, she would tell them the truth. For now, she focused on building a world where they felt safe, loved, and cherished. And though life was far from easy, Emily found a quiet strength within herself, a strength she never knew she had. Noah and Lily were now teenagers, full of curiosity and questions. They were inseparable, sharing an unbreakable bond. Both had their mother's determination and a spark of wit that seemed to come from somewhere else, someone else. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning the attic, Noah stumbled upon an old shoebox tucked away in the corner. The box was dusty, its lid slightly askew, as if it hadn't been touched in years. "What's this?" he muttered, pulling it down and calling for Lily. Inside, they found faded photographs, a few letters, and a small notebook. The pictures were of a younger Emily, smiling brightly beside a man they didn't recognize. The man looked strikingly familiar, though, with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, eyes that mirrored their own. Lily held up one of the letters, her brow furrowed. "Do you think this is Dad?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah nodded, his heart racing. Why didn't Mom tell us about him? They read through the letters, piecing together fragments of a story they had never been told. The man, Daniel, had left before they were born, leaving their mother to raise them alone. The words in the letters were heavy with regret, but offered little explanation. When Emily came home that evening, she found the twins sitting on the living room floor, the contents of the shoebox spread around them. Her heart sank. She knew this day would come but wasn't prepared for it. "Mom," Noah began, holding up a photograph. "Who is he? Is this our dad?" Emily took a deep breath and sat down beside them. She looked at the photo, her fingers trembling slightly as she traced the edges. "Yes," she said softly. "That's your father. His name is Daniel. Why didn't you tell us about him?" Lily asked, her voice filled with hurt. "I didn't want you to grow up feeling abandoned," Emily explained, her eyes glistening with tears. "I wanted you to know love, not pain. Your father, he made a choice to leave, but that doesn't mean he didn't care in his own way." The twins sat in silence, processing her words. They felt a mix of emotions: anger, confusion, and a strange sense of longing. "But he left you," Noah said, his voice tinged with frustration. "He left us." Emily nodded, her heart breaking for them. "I can't change what he did," she said gently. "But I can promise you this: you have always been enough for me. You've been my whole world." That night, as the rain tapped against the windows, the twins lay awake, thinking about the father they never knew. The seed of curiosity had been planted, and they knew they couldn't let it go. Noah turned to Lily in the dark. "We have to find him," he said firmly. Lily nodded. "We need answers." Noah and Lily sat in their room, their laptops open and determination written all over their faces. They had spent days scouring the internet, using every tool they could find to track down the man they had only seen in photographs. Each search brought a mixture of hope and frustration. "We know his name is Daniel Foster," Noah said, typing furiously into a search engine. "And Mom said he's in business. That should narrow it down." Lily leaned over his shoulder. "Try looking for his company. Maybe he's still running it." After hours of searching, a breakthrough came when Lily stumbled upon an article about a tech entrepreneur named Daniel Foster. The man in the photo was unmistakable: sharp features, piercing blue eyes, and the confident smile of someone used to success. "Found him." Lily exclaimed, pointing at the screen. Noah leaned closer, his heart pounding. That's him. That's definitely him. They read through the article, which detailed Daniel's rise in the tech world and his current life as a reclusive billionaire. He lived in a gated estate on the outskirts of the city, far from the modest neighborhood where Emily had raised them. What do we do now? Lily asked, her excitement tinged with nervousness. We go see him, Noah said without hesitation. We can't just sit here wondering why he left. We need to know the truth. The twins decided to tell Emily their plan, knowing she might not approve. As they sat her down, Noah took a deep breath and began. Mom, we found him. We know where Dad is. Emily's face froze, her hands gripping the edge of the table. You found him. Lily nodded. He's not far. We want to go see him, Mom. We need to know why he left us. Emily's eyes filled with worry. I understand why you want to do this, but please be careful. People don't always give the answers you're hoping for. He made his choice a long time ago. But we deserve to hear it from him, Noah said gently. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about us. Emily hesitated, then sighed. You're right. I can't stop you, but promise me you'll protect your hearts. Whatever happens, remember you're loved, and his choices don't define your worth. The next day, the twins packed a small bag and set off on a journey to find the man who had shaped their lives without ever being part of them. As they rode the bus to the outskirts of the city, they imagined what the meeting would be like. Would he recognize them? Would he regret leaving? Or would he slam the door in their faces? The journey felt like a mix of excitement and fear. They had no idea what awaited them at the end, but one thing was certain. They were ready to face it together. The twins stood at the tall iron gates of Daniel Foster's estate. The house beyond was enormous, with wide windows and perfectly trimmed hedges. It looked more like a castle than a home. Lily's hands shook as she pressed the intercom button. A crisp voice responded, Yes, who is this? Noah cleared his throat, trying to sound calm. We're here to see Daniel Foster. It's personal. There was a pause, followed by a brief buzz, and the gates slowly opened. The siblings exchanged nervous glances before stepping through. As they walked up the long driveway, Noah whispered, What do you think he'll say? Lily shook her head. I don't know. Just don't let him intimidate you, okay? The front door opened before they reached it, and there he was, Daniel Foster. He stood tall, his silver-streaked hair and tailored suit giving him an air of authority. His sharp features were unmistakable, and the piercing blue eyes that matched theirs stared at them with confusion. Can I help you? Daniel asked, his voice even but guarded. Noah stepped forward. We're Noah and Lily. Your kids. The color drained from Daniel's face. For a moment, he seemed frozen in place, his eyes darting between the two teenagers. What did you say? Lily stepped beside Noah, her voice soft but steady. We're your children. Mom is Emily. Does that name ring a bell? Daniel's expression shifted, a mix of shock, guilt, and something the twins couldn't quite place. Emily, he whispered, almost to himself. He opened the door wider. Come inside. The twins followed him into the grand house, their footsteps echoing on the marble floors. The living room was luxurious, with plush furniture and walls lined with art. But it felt cold, like a space meant to impress rather than live in. Daniel motioned for them to sit. He remained standing, his hands in his pockets as if unsure what to do. How did you find me? He finally asked. Lily looked him in the eye. It wasn't hard. You're all over the internet. What was hard was understanding why you left us. Daniel flinched, the weight of her words hitting him. He sat down across from them, his shoulders slumping slightly. I thought I was doing what was best, he said quietly. I wasn't ready to be a father. I thought Emily and you two would be better off without me. Noah leaned forward, his voice firm. You don't get to decide what's best for us. Mom gave everything to raise us. She never gave up, even when it was hard. What's your excuse?" Daniel looked away, guilt etched on his face. "I was selfish. There's no excuse for that. I've thought about you every day. But I was too much of a coward to face what I'd done." The room fell silent, the weight of unspoken years hanging between them. Lily's voice broke the quiet. "We didn't come here to hurt you. We just wanted answers." Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "You deserve more than answers. You deserve a father. If you'll let me, I'd like to try." The twins exchanged a glance. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. The atmosphere in the grand living room remained heavy as Daniel, Noah, and Lily sat together. The twins' minds raced with questions, emotions, and uncertainty. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed to be searching for the right words, his usually confident demeanor replaced by vulnerability. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Daniel said softly, breaking the silence. "But I want to understand. How have you been? How's your mother?" Noah's jaw tightened, but Lily placed a hand on his arm, silently reminding him to stay calm. "Mom's strong," she said. "She raised us on her own, working nonstop to make sure we had everything we needed. She never complained, even when things were tough." Daniel's face fell as he listened. The image of Emily struggling alone while he thrived in luxury was a bitter pill to swallow. "She always was stronger than I ever gave her credit for," he murmured, almost to himself. Noah leaned forward, his voice sharp but steady. "You left her. You left us. And now you want to act like you care. Why should we trust you?" Daniel met his son's gaze, his expression pained but sincere. "You're right to feel that way," he admitted. "I can't undo the choices I made. But seeing you both here, I realize what I've missed. If there's any way I can make it up to you, I'll try. I owe you that much." Lily's voice was gentler. "We don't want your money or anything like that. We just want to know why. Why did you think walking away was the answer?" Daniel took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. "At the time, I thought I was doing what was best. I was young, ambitious, and scared. I thought I'd fail as a father and hold your mom back. But the truth is, I was selfish. I didn't want to face the responsibility." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, no one spoke. The twins could see the regret in his eyes, but regret wasn't enough to erase years of absence. After a long pause, Daniel stood up. "I want to show you something," he said, motioning for them to follow him. He led them to a smaller room, less grand than the rest of the house. On the walls were photographs, old and new, of Emily, Noah, and Lily. Some were from when Daniel and Emily were together, while others were recent, clearly taken from social media or other sources. "I've been watching from a distance," Daniel admitted. "It doesn't make up for anything, but I've always cared. I just didn't know how to come back." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the photos. "You could have tried," she whispered. Daniel nodded, his voice breaking. "You're right. And now, I'm asking for a chance to make things right. To get to know you, if you'll let me." Noah and Lily exchanged a look. Trust wouldn't come easily, but the sincerity in Daniel's words planted a seed of hope. The days after their meeting at Daniel's house were a whirlwind of emotions for Noah and Lily. They hadn't expected the man who had abandoned them to show such regret or sincerity. Though their anger hadn't disappeared, curiosity and a faint glimmer of hope kept them from shutting him out completely. Daniel, on the other hand, was determined to make up for lost time. For the first time in years, he set aside his work to focus on something far more important: his children. He called them regularly, asking about their lives, their dreams, and their challenges. At first, the conversations were awkward and brief, but slowly the walls began to come down. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel invited Noah, Lily, and Emily to his estate for lunch. Emily hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to face the man who had left her. But after seeing the twins resolve to rebuild some form of connection, she agreed. When they arrived, Daniel greeted them warmly, his nervousness hidden behind a smile. He had set up a table in the garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and gentle sunlight. It was a far cry from the cold, distant image he once represented. As they ate, Daniel tried his best to make everyone comfortable. He listened intently as Noah talked about his love for photography, and Lily shared her dream of becoming a doctor. He even complimented Emily on her strength and resilience, which brought a small, hesitant smile to her face. After lunch, Daniel led them to a small workshop behind the house. Inside were several wooden frames, easels, and paints. "I've been working on something," he said, showing them a half-finished painting. It was a portrait of Noah and Lily, based on a photo he had seen of them. Lily gasped. "You painted this?" Daniel nodded. "I've been learning. It's not perfect, but I wanted to create something for you." Noah studied the painting, his heart softening. "It's really good," he admitted. As the afternoon wore on, the tension began to ease. Emily and Daniel spoke quietly, discussing the past and the choices that had brought them here. While forgiveness wasn't immediate, there was a sense of understanding between them, a tentative truce for the sake of their children. When it was time to leave, Daniel walked them to the gate. "I know I can't erase the pain I caused," he said, "but I want to be part of your lives, however you'll let me." Noah and Lily exchanged a look, then turned back to him. "It's going to take time," Noah said honestly. Lily nodded, "But we're willing to try." As they drove away, Emily glanced at her children in the rearview mirror. For the first time in years, she saw a sense of peace in their faces. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: a new chapter had begun for all of them, built on hope, forgiveness, and the promise of a better future together.